South Asia recently witnessed two nations grapple with profound political and economic crises. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, neighbors in a dynamic region, experienced upheavals that led to dramatic changes in leadership. However, their paths diverged significantly in the aftermath. Sri Lanka faced a crippling economic collapse in 2022, while Bangladesh saw widespread protests and a military-backed transition in mid-2024. These events offer a stark comparison in how nations respond to internal pressures and the subsequent trajectories they embark upon, illustrating different approaches to governance and national recovery amidst turmoil. The international community watched closely, as the stability of this populous region holds global significance. In Bangladesh, the ousting of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in August 2024, following intense student-led protests, did not immediately usher in an era of stability. The protests, initially against job quotas, quickly expanded to encompass broader grievances about the economy, corruption, and human rights. The transition, described by some observers as a quiet military coup, saw Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus appointed to lead an interim government. However, this new administration, reportedly operating under military direction, has struggled to restore order and has faced accusations of its own concerning human rights and the suppression of political opposition figures, painting a complex picture of change. The period following the leadership change in Bangladesh was marked by significant disorder. Reports emerged of widespread looting, vandalism, and deeply concerning revenge killings. Attacks on minorities, particularly the Hindu community, became a serious issue, forcing the military to intervene to quell the violence, even firing on rioters in some instances. This wave of unrest has led to a climate of fear and insecurity, impacting daily life and hindering any immediate prospects for national development. The new government's focus on accountability for past atrocities is ongoing, but the immediate environment is one of considerable instability and social fragmentation across the nation. The promise of a second liberation, as some Bangladeshis had hoped for, quickly met the harsh realities of a deeply fractured society and an economy already struggling with high inflation and dwindling foreign reserves. The interim government, while establishing numerous commissions for reform in areas like the judiciary and electoral system, is operating in an environment where basic law and order remain a primary challenge. The initial euphoria among protesters has given way to a more somber assessment of the long road ahead, with the specter of continued military influence looming large over the civilian administration and its ambitious reform agenda, creating an uncertain future. 2 years prior, in 2022, Sri Lanka experienced its own dramatic upheaval, leading to the fall of the powerful Rajapaksa family. The nation was effectively bankrupt. Its coffers were empty, inflation had spiraled to extreme levels, and citizens endured crippling shortages of essential goods like food, fuel, and medicine. Power cuts were frequent and prolonged, bringing daily life to a standstill for many. This economic meltdown was the culmination of years of mismanagement, unsustainable debt, and questionable policy decisions, pushing the island nation to the brink of complete collapse and igniting widespread public anger that transcended societal divisions. The ensuing mass uprising was a testament to the desperation of the Sri Lankan people. Millions took to the streets demanding accountability and the resignation of the ruling elite. The protests were largely driven by ordinary citizens, particularly the youth, who saw their futures jeopardized by the incompetence and alleged corruption of the Rajapaksa regime. Eventually, the pressure became untenable, forcing key members of the family, including the president, to relinquish power. This marked a significant turning point, opening a narrow window for a potential reset for the beleaguered country, though the path forward was fraught with immense challenges and uncertainties. In the wake of the Rajapaksa's ouster, an interim government was swiftly formed. Its primary, all-consuming focus was national recovery, deliberately placing political maneuvering on the back burner. This administration understood that without stabilizing the economy and restoring basic services, any political settlement would be meaningless. The immediate tasks were daunting: securing emergency financial assistance, negotiating with creditors, and implementing painful but necessary austerity measures to staunch the economic bleeding. The new leadership signaled a departure from the previous regime's opulence and detachment from the populace's suffering, aiming to rebuild public trust. One of the first symbolic and practical steps taken by the interim government was to embrace austerity. Leaders made a point of avoiding luxury and extravagance. Unnecessary foreign trips for officials were halted, a clear signal of a shift in priorities. Perhaps most strikingly, the salaries of government officials were temporarily suspended, a measure designed to show solidarity with the suffering populace and to conserve every available rupee for essential services. This approach, though demanding, aimed to demonstrate a shared commitment to navigating the crisis, fostering a sense of collective responsibility in the monumental task of rebuilding the shattered economy from the ground up. A remarkable aspect of Sri Lanka's crisis was the responsible and constructive role played by the youth who had been at the forefront of the Aragalaya struggle. Once the political transition occurred, many of these young activists, who had led the powerful protest movement, reportedly took a step back from direct agitation and returned to their respective professional and academic positions. This disciplined disengagement was crucial. It helped prevent the descent into prolonged anarchy or mob justice that can often follow such dramatic societal upheavals, allowing nascent institutions to begin functioning without undue pressure from the streets. This responsible conduct by the protest leaders contributed significantly to maintaining a degree of public order, even amidst the severe economic hardship. Unlike the scenes of escalating violence and targeted attacks witnessed in other regional crises, Sri Lanka largely avoided widespread mob justice. Government offices were not systematically set on fire, and citizens generally refrained from taking the law into their own hands or attempting to usurp judicial functions. This collective restraint provided the interim government with the necessary space to focus on the arduous tasks of economic stabilization and negotiating international aid packages, which were vital for survival. The interim government, unburdened by immediate political infighting, concentrated on the silent, diligent work of rebuilding the nation's foundations. Their focus on practical measures, such as securing an IMF bailout package and restructuring debt, began to yield tangible results over time. Transparency in administrative processes reportedly increased, helping to restore a measure of international trust, which was critical for attracting foreign investment and assistance. The government's commitment to fiscal discipline, though painful in the short term, laid the groundwork for a slow but steady economic turnaround, signaling a departure from previous populist policies. As a result of these concerted efforts, Sri Lanka has shown notable signs of recovery from its near-death experience. Inflation, which had reached devastating highs, began to decrease significantly, easing the burden on ordinary citizens. Foreign currency reserves started to replenish, albeit slowly. The queues for fuel and cooking gas shortened, and the availability of essential goods improved. This turnaround, while still fragile, demonstrated that with focused leadership, societal cooperation, and difficult reforms, even a country pushed to the brink could begin to chart a path back towards stability and, eventually, prosperity for its people. In stark contrast to Sri Lanka's nascent recovery, Bangladesh's trajectory following its 2024 upheaval has been fraught with negative outcomes. The initial hopes for sweeping positive change have been overshadowed by ongoing instability and violence. Reports from the ground paint a grim picture of increased fear, with incidents of robbery, extortion, and land grabbing becoming more common. The dream of development has stalled as the nation grapples with fundamental issues of safety and security for its citizens. This situation has created a pervasive sense of uncertainty about the country's immediate future and its ability to address pressing economic and social needs effectively. The interim government in Bangladesh, while vocal about reforms, has struggled to contain the widespread societal breakdown. The oppression of minorities, particularly the Hindu community, and attacks on the property of former Awami League leaders continued in the initial post-coup period, creating deep social fissures. Furthermore, concerns have been raised about the actions of the new administration itself, including the arrest of numerous politicians and journalists associated with the previous government. This has led to accusations that the interim government under significant military influence is engaging in politically motivated actions rather than fostering an inclusive path towards reconciliation and democratic renewal. The key difference in approaches between the two nations is striking. Sri Lanka's interim government prioritized national economic recovery above all else, implementing austerity and focusing on rebuilding trust. Its youth movement transitioned from protest to responsible civic participation, fostering an environment conducive to rebuilding. In Bangladesh, however, the military's prominent role in the new administration and the immediate aftermath of violence and score settling have taken precedence. The focus appears to be more on consolidating power and dismantling the old guard, rather than a unified national effort towards economic stabilization and social cohesion, leading to a different set of outcomes. Ultimately, Sri Lanka's experience, though still ongoing, suggests that a path to recovery, even from a deep crisis, is possible when there is a concerted effort towards stability, responsible leadership, and a degree of societal consensus to prioritize national interests. The youth's decision to step back and allow institutions to function was pivotal. Bangladesh, on the other hand, illustrates the dangers of a transition marked by continued recrimination, violence, and an ambiguous power structure. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether Bangladesh can navigate its way out of its current turmoil, or if it will face a prolonged period of instability, impacting its development and regional standing.